Are you overwhelmed by the challenge of personalizing communication for thousands of students? That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. From nudging prospective students to guiding those already on their journey, AI assistants don't just automate. They write, build, and optimize every step of your digital campaigns. Discover how at element451.com/AI team.
I do like the new year as a chance to stop and say, you know what, I am going to be my own client, and I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm going to be my own best friend, and I'm going to ask myself, what do I want, what do I need, and what can I do?
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your Monday morning energizer covering insights and trends in higher ed marketing and enrollment. I'm Mallory Wilsey, bringing over 15 years of ed tech and marketing expertise to your earbuds.
And I'm Seth Odell, joining the Pulse with my own adventures from leading marketing at top universities to founding Kanahoma, one of the industry's fastest growing digital marketing agencies.
Each week, we bring you the kind of insider insights you typically only find over cocktails with your pals at a conference.
It's fast, it's fun, and it's designed for you, the busy higher ed professional.
You're not just listening to another podcast.
You're checking the pulse of higher education.
Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Hello and welcome to the Higher Ed Pulse. I am your co-host Seth, joined as always by the talented and impressive and wonderful Mallory. Mallory, how are you?
It's like the running joke of this podcast that when you kick us off, at minimum...
That or the paper cranes.
Yeah, it's one of the two. The number of people, Seth, who have pinged me over the last couple weeks and have said that they were drinking their coffee and then spit out their coffee when I asked you twice in a row.
I know.
Those cranes.
I know. So I'm always happy to return the favor and open it with my very sincere compliments of you. I always love seeing you every week. It's one of the highlights of doing this is that we're old friends who get a chance to get back together and talk shop. And that's exactly what we're doing today. I am super excited with this topic. We are talking about New Year, New Who. You know, every year we all talk about New Year's resolutions, where we want to go, what we want to do. And this is a conversation, Mallory, that I just wanted to have with you personally. And we figured, you know what, run the mic and let's actually do it. I want to catch up. I want to hear about what do you got planned for 2025? How are you approaching your work? Different, the same? What are you thinking about? I have a couple things that are big focuses for me this year. And I learned the most from these conversations is just like syncing with other leaders that I admire and try to get their perspective on what are they thinking about in the year ahead. It's always just a fun conversation. And so I'm excited. New year, new who. I'm excited to talk about it with you today.
I'm excited too. Where do you want to start?
Let me open up with one. So as I think about 2025, it's hard for me to not think about it from a business perspective. So I will say disproportionately, I'm thinking about it from a business perspective. My first area of focus is really around building an AI agency. And so people know I run Kanahoma. We're an education marketing agency, over 30 full-time employees. We work with over 15 college universities. But I think on a long enough timeline, it's super clear that AI is going to dramatically disrupt the business model that I rely on today. And so it's not on fire today. We're growing, our partners are growing, everything's great. But if you can read the tea leaves, you need to know what's coming. And my fear is that oftentimes in a disruptive environment, incumbents are the ones that are disrupted last because they don't have to adopt or change. And so I have a genuine fear that because the business is going so well, knock on wood, and performance is so good for our partners that we're not going to move as quickly as we need to. And so I have a big focus for myself and the whole company this year that we're going to build an AI agency. And I've chunked that out into three pieces. The first is education. The second is augmentation, and the third is segmentation. So from an education perspective, it's purely like, are we as a company all on the same page about where is AI today and what are the tools available? So we've built like a large AI directory where we're tracking different tools that are available to folks, within different service lines. So like if you work in web versus SEO versus you're a designer, like what are all the tools and opportunities, because they're changing every day. And so education is the first. I've then allocated a large amount of investment from the business to pay for professional tools for folks, so that way people can then look at the directory and say, these are the tools that I want to try, and then I'll buy those for them and get them subscriptions. So we've carved out a big piece of investment. And then when people are using them, when they find one that works, they're using Loom to record like mini tutorial videos and share those in Slack, just so like we can all learn from each other. So education is the first. The second piece, augmentation, to me is really what we're focused on in 2025, which is like, how can we use AI to do what we already do better? So let's just augment the current work that we do. And so like, where can tools make us faster or more effective, or do something more cost effectively? So like, just do what we do better. The third, segmentation, I candidly don't know that we'll even get to this year, which is like, how do we use AI to actually do different things, like totally different things? So in either case, building an AI agency has been a big focus of mine. And it's probably like my biggest like up at night worry of the business is that we sleep because we're successful and we don't make a move here, and this catches up to us. So building an AI agency has been a big, big focus for me for 2025.
Well, you're always talking about Clayton Christensen's job to be done, right?
Yes.
And, and it feels like your framework around this is very grounded in your agency's job to be done, and by extension, the schools that you're representing.
Yeah, very much.
I love the emphasis on 2025 being the year of augmentation, and I think you're not alone there either. I have a feeling that really resonates with a lot of people listening to this episode right now. It's been a lot about AI. The last couple of years has been a lot about experimentation, and I've said a number of times, like, we're not really going to get to the point of full augmentation or integration until AI is built into our workflows and the tools that we're already using. So, I love ChatGPT, do not get me wrong, but like, it is another place I have to go. And if that capability was just built into the tools where I'm writing my content and drafting my content, I'd never go back to ChatGPT. So it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds for you this year, Seth. But it seems like you're taking all the right steps to help set your team up and then ultimately your customers up for success.
I think the biggest thing is incentivizing people, because there's like such a learning curve and also like a value curve, meaning like you put all this time and energy into learning things and you don't get enough value out to really be worth the investment in the short term. And this is like classic R&D, where it's like, we need to do these things, but it's like, okay, but I already have a full to-do list now. And it's like, my day's already busy. And so that's the piece where I'm trying to keep people culturally excited. I'm trying to make an investment in really investing in the tools. But like, Charlie Munger always says, show me the incentive, I'll show you the behavior. That's probably the biggest hurdle is going to be for me, is that like, when people are already busy, how do we make this a priority? And it's like, I guess it's a problem for any business or organization. How do you prioritize the future rather than the present, or doing so not at the expense of the present? But yeah, that's a big one for me. That's why it felt like I needed to like stand up, and share that with the team and kind of make it a big priority, is to try to elevate it, shine some light on it. So, but no. Well, you think about 2025. What do you think about, whether for yourself or for the team? What are a couple things you're mulling over?
Yeah, well, I like that you started kind of with a professional piece, so I will do that as well. I think, so I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think I have 3 kind of core beliefs that guide me, and maybe I've only just kind of recently put pen to paper on this, but I think these have been beliefs of mine from, even like my high school days. So I have always been a team sport player, not an individual sport player. Like I played soccer, I played volleyball, and I really truly believe that success is a team sport, and it's not individual glory, but it's collective wins. And I've often found myself in positions where I can set other people up to succeed, and in tandem, like, it ensures that whatever that bigger picture is being pushed forward as well. So that's one core belief. My second is that empowerment starts with trust. And when you trust people to take ownership, they feel more confident and creative and capable as a result. And so kind of my like leadership philosophy is like create a safe space for people to take risks and to grow and empower them and provide them with positive feedback just as much as constructive feedback. And then my third is that the assist is just as powerful as the goal. And so you have to have a playmaker for the person to score, right? And I find a lot of fulfillment in being the playmaker, like in helping other people achieve their potential. And that goes back to my point about success being a team sport. And so it's like, I don't always feel the drive to be on the podium. I feel the drive to mentor and to provide the platform or the tools to create the moment of success for someone else. And so I've been doing this reflection on these three areas, and I'm kind of like, oh shit, I'm in a really good spot. Like, Enrollify kind of lines up right there, you know? Like, and so for me, I think heading into this year, it's with a lot of just conviction that I'm in the right place and that if I stick to these three core philosophies, that Enrollify as a result can continue to thrive. Like if you're a loyal listener, you heard me share about a month ago that 50% of our network's total listens have come within the past year. We've been around for about 5.5 years, right? So we're on this path of hockey stick growth at Enrollify. And if I can take those philosophies and infuse just a little more editorial focus within the network, that is still going to allow individuals to shine. It's still going to keep the creators in control of their content. But from where I sit, I have such a wide view of this industry and how AI and technology is going to continue to have such an impact in our day-to-days, no matter what unit you work in. And so I think that Enrollify can become this place where this all comes together. AI, technology, Marcom, and higher ed, right? And it's like, it's the intersection of all of those things. And if you're watching, like, and I'm showing my Venn diagram fingers right now, it's like, it's that center point. That's where I want to focus. And so as we head into this year, that's my guiding light.
I love that. I do think more and more like how we keep things in unison. It's like conducting things and just making sure that if we're just doing this like a slight tweak to do the right thing in the right place, makes a huge impact. This is like a very tactical example of this, but I've been thinking more about like how I like market my business, and like we don't much, right? Like we, for the most part, like demand has come in. And so as I've thought about marketing, it's like, well, I'm like posting more on LinkedIn, which I shared many episodes ago. Like I do this podcast, I have a newsletter, but without I guess I'm just going to embarrass myself and say, like, I haven't had even a formal content strategy. Like, what is the core things that I want to talk about, and what are the platforms I could talk about them on, and how can I find synergies across these things? Like, I'm already doing so much of the work. What I haven't done is got these things to sing in harmony. And like, so I just love the way you're thinking about that stuff, which is like, it's so often with like a new year, it's like, well, let's just do something new and different. And like the classic thing is always like, you can't do something new without stopping doing something old, because otherwise all you're doing is just spreading yourself thinner than you were the year before, which doesn't help anybody. But it's not just about like doing new things. It's just about like getting the things that you're doing to be in synergy with each other and be a little bit more intentional about some of that sometimes. So I love that. That's a really great approach.
Well, Seth, you might not have a content strategy articulated, but you do have a holiday gift strategy.
That I do. I had so much fun with the last Kitahoma holiday drop. It was awesome.
So much fun. I'll say I haven't had a chance to like fire up my s'mores in my home quite yet because I have been traveling.
Well, make sure to fire it up outside.
Well, okay, fair.
I had to tell a few people that some people think that because the stove is smokeless that they could do it inside. I'm like, please don't. It says on the box not to. I don't know if my general liability insurance covers mistakes from a company holiday gift.
All right. Well, if you're sitting on one of these stoves, folks, go outside.
Yeah. And if you're still listening, we still have a few left in my garage, so feel free to DM me. There can be a few late shipments into 2025.
Special for Enrollify listeners?
Yes,
I love this.
DM me if you want a box, and I'll let you know if we still have a few in the garage. I love it. So I'll switch. My next one I'll say is on the personal side. Mm-hmm. I've been thinking a lot about like reimagining my own role. So like 2024 for me in some ways was like the year that I like pulled back a little bit. I really overworked myself. Having a kid and starting a business was a lot to take on, and I tried tried really hard to pull back on my hours worked, which didn't really work, but a little bit. And I did like frame up my schedule a lot in 2024. So on the self-reflection side, like I, drop my daughter off at school every day, which has been great. I got a personal trainer so I work out in the mornings. So I start my day a little bit later, and I've like allowed some constraints that have been really healthy, but I really want to like push that a lot farther this year. I guess last year I also hired like a personal coach, kind of like a performance coach that's been really good. I went to a couple mindful leadership retreats, but actually this is interesting. I didn't think about this at the time. Similar to the conversation we just had, I kind of just like spaghettied at the wall a bunch of stuff. I'm like, well, control your schedule, do this, go on this retreat, hire this. And I really want to be much more intentional this year and have like a framework for what I'm like referring to as like my personal practice. Like, I'm the only one I get to live my life with, right? Like I'm with me the whole ride through. And so like, how do I get to build a deeper, better, more honest and intentional relationship with myself? And so like I'm starting an authentic relating practice, which is a specific like framework that you can do. And I'm just like really trying to prioritize a little bit, like, it's self-care is one thing, but I think so often we look at self-care as reactionary. Like I want like preventative self-care, which is like, how do I just like take care of myself better and more intentionally? And so I'd love a little bit more time with my family, a little bit more time for my health, but also like approaching my personal practice a little bit more intellectually. So it's like, how do I actually, whether it's meditation or retreats or whatever else. So that's been a big area for me in 2025 that I want to build off the success in 2024. And some of that's meant putting in systems. So like I hired an assistant last year, which is I've never had an assistant my whole career. I used to pride myself on that as like, oh, I don't need an assistant. But that was just like, how much of my time am I spending doing calendar invites and organizing my email and all sorts of things? Like, this is just foolish. I have 30 employees. I could spend my time so much better. And so those have been some things I've been thinking about from last year, that they were successes, but they were like unorganized. And so I'm ready to get a little bit more dialed in from reimagining my role and my relationship with myself.
That's beautiful. For me, I think that I'm still thinking about this. And the question I keep coming back to is, what's the one thing I'll regret not starting this year? Like 12 months from now. And so often I feel like I hear it's like, oh, when you're sitting in your rocking chair, what's the thing you're gonna? I'm like, no. We don't need to wait for the rocking chair. Like, let's fast forward to just December 2025. What is the one thing I'll regret not starting this year? And I love how like Adam Grant is constantly talking about, like the baby steps that are required to building new habits or getting started. And like we can have this mindset shift away from having to go from 0 to 60 all at once. And so I don't have the answer yet, but it's the thing I'm reflecting on. And if there is, anything that I know that I'm going to do, it's going to be embracing rest a little bit more. I feel like I've been, since the pandemic, just in spaces both professionally and personally, where as a high performer, I am encouraged to go, 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 go. And so that results in working 60 plus hour work weeks, or tuning in on the weekends, or literally having my phone like feeling like it's attached to my body sometimes. And I need to go off the grid a little bit more. I need to actually learn from you and some of the things, like even if it was spaghetti at the wall, like the things that my network and friends and the people I trust have put into practice so that they can find that balance. Like, listeners know I'm a big fitness person. Like, so that's not my concern. Like, I still get the most energy and joy out of going to a spin or bar class. And so where can I build more of that in is probably part of the solution. But like, how can I just go off the grid for a whole weekend? Because I say that out loud and I like think I'm going to go into a cold sweat because I'm like, no, what? A whole weekend? No tech?
I love that. Yeah, I love that so much. I have an aspiration on my roadmap. Now I'm going to mention this is going to turn into a paper crane situation, but I have a strong aspiration to get to a place where I can switch back down to a dumb phone and get off of a smartphone. And so part of like even like having an assistant now to curate my email and other things has been like, how can I get into a rhythm where like I am checking email is not checking me. And so like I don't have notifications on my phone. I have do not disturb on my phone 24 hours a day. I have my phone on grayscale. I've I've done a bunch of tactical things that if you're listening, you can try those things and they're helpful. But I'm working on the next, I want to get to the place where I can actually migrate down. So it's like, I'm going to sit at my computer and check my email, or maybe I will pull it up on my phone, but at a very intentional time where it's like, I am checking things aren't checking me. That power dynamic is off, like in a society. And so I do think that I want to free that up. I love your thought about like thinking about different things you want to achieve. Like, what would you regret at the end of the year? There's a gentleman, Jesse Itzler, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He has this product called the Big Ass Calendar. Hopefully we can swear on this podcast. I don't think I ever have. So
I already have, at least once today.
So he has this thing called the Big Ass Calendar that we did last year. My wife Lauren got it, and we got it again this year. It's this giant, like 3 foot by 2 foot calendar that sits in your house, and it has every day of the year as a square, and each month is a row. And you put Post-its and you write things out. And it was really great because last year we did it, and we actually color coded like what were work trips, what were trips my wife and I were going on together, what were trips we're doing alone. We weren't planning to do alone trips. So it's like, well, I'm going to go on this retreat. She's going to go on this trip, and like looking at it that way is really helpful. Jesse, who created the calendar, has a framework where he looks at like every quarter you have to do one big memory, and every year you have to have one huge accomplishment where when you look back, you're like, oh, that's the year that I did X. So like when I think about like 2020, it's like that's the year I started Kanahoma. 2021, that's the year I had my daughter. And it's like, oh, okay, like suddenly it's like these things. And so it's so easy just to think about like individual tasks and components, and it's so hard to prioritize ourselves. And so in some ways I worry like the new year, new who conversation can turn into this like, oh, just general New Year's resolutions. But I actually think it's important because like how often in your day-to-day do you stop and put yourself first? And the answer for most of us is very rarely, right? Like we are letting our phone tell us who to pay attention to. We are letting work consume us and pull our attention elsewhere, and our inbox tells us who needs us the most. And so like I do like the new year as a chance to stop and say, you know what, like I am going to be my own client, and I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm going to be my own best friend. And I'm going to ask myself, what do I want? What do I need? And what can I do? Just because we should be doing that all the time, but we don't, right? Like life gets in the way, and that's just not a reality. So if nothing else, it's like a fun chance and a fun time of year to grab this window and say like, okay, what do you want to do this year for you? That'd be really, I don't know, I think it's an important thing to pause and think about.
I love that. And, maybe the call to action here is that everybody takes the next couple minutes just to turn off all that noise and just sit here and reflect on what it is that you want to get out of 2025. And then when you turn the technology back on, pop over to LinkedIn and let us know.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. On your own terms, on your own time.
Exactly.
We would love to know what you're thinking for the year, whether it's professional or personal. I think social sharing is a great accountability, whether it's online or just in person. You're telling your spouse or your friend or your parents or your child, like, what do you plan to do? What do you want to do? Tell somebody. It does increase your accountability and probability of success. And so don't let the window go by. You deserve it to take the time to self-reflect and think about it.
And if one of your professional goals is to learn more about how to integrate artificial intelligence into your workflows, see how naturally I transitioned that one, Seth.
It's good. It is for us, right? Build an AI agency. So I'm right front of line for this kind of stuff. So yeah.
It is. We are hosting another AI Engage Summit at the end of February, just a little over a month away. It is virtual. It is free. It is 2 afternoons. And if you can't make every session, that's fine, because if you register, you're going to get access to the on-demand recordings. The schedule is live, and we will drop a link to where you can register and see that agenda at the top of our show notes. But if you go to enrollify.org, it's also just in that orange banner at the very top of the website as well. So super easy to find. 2025 very much is going to be the year where we harness AI for real results, right? And we've already said this, like the last couple of years, it's been about experimentation and trying things out and getting comfortable with it. While the early adopters are already leveraging AI to do things like scale their operations and impact the student journey and their communications with students, and they're already seeing some very real results as it relates to saving their staff time and impacting things like new student recruitment all the way through retention. And so if you're not one of those early adopters, like this is kind of your year to get on board. And we don't want you to be left behind. So the partnership between Enrollify and Element 451 is making this summit really special. You will see a lot of the Enrollify creators on the agenda, but also that is exactly why we can do this at no cost to you. So we are really appreciative of Element 451 for making this a thing for us. So yeah, so click the link, go register. We're excited to see you there. And Seth, I mean, like, I guess I have to ask, like, since this is a 2025 conversation, did we totally abandon the paper cranes, or are they coming back in 2025?
Sometimes I don't abandon things that I know I need to do. They often just rest and wait.
Oh, they're sleeping cranes. Okay.
They are eagerly awaiting my return, and I will not close that door as I intend to return to them.
Love it. All right, friends, we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.